Hi, in this week's update I wanted to talk about trade and the death of globalization. So you've probably seen in the news recently the US and China with their trade dispute and tariffs and whatnot, but recently they've had the Chinese executive and a founder's daughter actually of a Chinese company be detained at the request of the US officials or US government. Investors believe this will put a complete halt on any trade truce going forward. Basically, what might happen now is US manufacturers could come back to the US, but unlike what Trump would like, none of those jobs are actually coming back. Now, what we have at the moment, if I can refer you to this chart, is we have China over here. Basically what they're trying to do is they're manipulating their currencies. So the Chinese yuan is basically cheaper compared to the US dollar, which makes all their goods cheaper for US consumers and businesses to buy. They also have a huge pool of cheap labor. So it's almost a no-brainer if you're over here in the US and you're a manufacturer to go over to China and set up manufacturing plants over there. Basically, if you don't, you're going to get gouged on price. But when these US manufacturers do go over and they take their jobs with them, what happens is you cannot just set up manufacturing jobs in China. What you have to do is most of the time you might have to go into a joint venture with some Chinese businesses. It might be like a 40-60 split or a 49-51 split, just so a Chinese business has some control over it, or maybe even the government might have some control over it. What also might happen along with these JVs when a manufacturer goes over into China, is they might require the US business to transfer some of their technology and processes, which might be their secret sauce, or that might be their competitive advantage over other manufacturers. They might be required to give that up to their joint venture partner or to policymakers in China. And this is where Trump comes in, and he's particularly not happy about this. So jobs are going over there, US innovation is going over there, it's being used against the US. So basically what we have Trump putting taxes on all sorts of Chinese goods, encouraging them to buy more US goods and trying to limit technology transfers as much as possible. But the problem is more taxes is not going to bring those jobs back. It might bring manufacturers to it might bring suppliers to divert their purchases from Chinese manufacturers, but it will not bring those jobs back. So if we wind the clock back a little bit and we look at how people used to live before global trade, before globalism really took hold, we were mainly just an agricultural society, and local producers were producing what they could do by themselves. But what has happened since the 1800s and the Industrial Revolution is trade specialization has opened up the world to globalism. And basically what you get is Germany who specializes in the manufacture of cars, and you get China who specializes in the manufacture of cheap goods. And these efficiency gains make goods a lot cheaper, and it improves living standards. So you get people in the early 1800s living a lot better than any aristocrat or any kind of royal that lived just a generation before. So basically globalism and trade has done amazing things for global living standards. But what I expect we're going to see happen in the next few years, maybe the next decade, is globalism in reverse and trade in reverse. And it's simply because if you listen to a guy called Bruce Greenwald, professor of Columbia Business School, he talks about how manufacturing is a dying industry, because efficiency improvements in manufacturing is growing by about 4%, and demand for manufactured goods are growing by about 2%. So what you do is you reach a turning point at some point where everyone can manufacture whatever they need to, just like they could with agriculture. Right now, anyone can anyone can grow agricultural goods for themselves. The same thing will happen with manufacturing, where efficiency improvements taken over by automation and robotics it basically eliminates cheap labour as an advantage. So China's cheap labour advantage is basically eliminated with as efficiency improvements outstrip demand every single year. And what you get is, what Trump likes is the manufacturing does come back to the US, and that's happened recently actually. More manufactured goods or more manufacturing output has come out of the US, but it's a jobless revival in manufacturing. Basically, robotics and automation are taking away these jobs while manufacturing is coming back, and all these jobs are taken out by efficiency gains within manufacturing. This will also be a very tough process for any workers within the manufacturing industry. Obviously, they'll have to upskill and they'll have to learn new things, and they might have to move into the service sector. And it's going to be a tough process for most developing economies. I think most developed economies are also going to feel a very hard strain on their labour market as it gets sucked out of the manufacturing sector and put back into the service sector. And what you're going to see is more local manufacturers who can specialise to local tastes. You're going to see service businesses localised to local tastes. And for you as the individual investor, what you want to look for is these local manufacturers and local service businesses that can dominate within a local area because they have access to more information, or they might have built infrastructure which allows them to advertise more, or either or. So I think this whole trade war is a little bit redundant, even though it does make markets move up and down. It's in the long run, it will do nothing towards Trump's goals, and it'll actually do nothing towards what China wants to do. They want to be a manufacturing powerhouse, but global demand is about 2% and efficiency gains of 4%. So where does all that surplus go to? It has to go to the US. But sooner or later, those manufacturing facilities go over to the US, and local supply meets local demand. And that's why, as I said before, you as the individual investor, you want to look at these local manufacturers, local services businesses, where they can dominate with existing infrastructure or some type of advantage.
Remember to like and subscribe below if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more future weekly updates.